Afternoon. Now, first of all, excuse any noise you might hear. That's my fan blowing. I keep it on sometimes. I turn it on to keep the room cool, even though it's cool outside. Actually, it's kind of the fact that I like to keep my PC cool. I mean, I mentioned this in a couple of videos, so if you want to look at those, go ahead. Anyway, I'm here to do a DVD review. Now, I know I did a DVD review just a couple of days ago with the Ninja Turtles, but that was part of my movie of the month. This is just a DVD review I felt like doing because I don't think I've ever reviewed this one yet. Now, I mentioned one of them anyway, but here's the DVD review I want to talk about. The DVD review I want to do is on that legendary sailor, Popeye. That's right. And the DVD I want to review is Popeye the movie. That's right. It's Popeye in his first motion picture. Now, before I get into that, let's talk a little bit about this one. Now, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this one before in one of my replies to Zana Zariki. I could be wrong. But in this, you basically have... Now this, believe it or not, is before Warner Brothers bought the series, or bought the cartoons, and released them in box sets. I'm not sure what they're going to do with the 50 ones, with the ones that came out in the in the 40s and the 50s, but we'll find out. I'm pretty sure they might be able to do them too. But anyway, and those are the famous studio hours. Anyway, this has 34 classic cartoons, 34 classic, cartoons on there. The list is basically, it's got Popeye the Sailor, meets Sinbad, meets Alibaba. It's got everything from, it starts out on disc 1 with mostly the cartoons from the 30s. Then we get into the famous studio eras, where his character design was from the blue cap, was from, this to this. Yeah, that's what we're starting to get into. Basically, famous studios changed them into what you saw in the 50s and 60s and 40s. And this too is chock full of all those cartoons from 1942 all the way up to 1957. So that's how many cartoons are on there. Now, why am I mentioning this? Well, because I got to mention this. This is the first. This is Popeye's first movie ever, and it's his only live-action movie. Now, to know that Popeye started in the early 30s, this was basically almost 40 plus years later, almost 45 years plus later when this was made. This was made in 1980. That's right, 1980. This was made. 1980. And it stars, as you can see, Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall. Now, Shelley Duvall you might know from Cheers. And Robin Williams, well, who doesn't know him? But this is actually, from what I understand, Robin's first major starring role. And he stars as Popeye. And believe it or not, it's a musical. That's right. You think of a regular Popeye cartoon, right? You don't really get that much music in there unless it's like in the old 30s and everything. Well, there wasn't that much music in those either. But still, we have all the characters in here from the 30s, 40s, and the 50s and 60s. And are actually designed after the old cartoons. Well, actually, all those characters, Shelley Duvall, is reminisce more of when they tried to revamp it a little bit in between. But this movie came out, like I said, in 1980. It came out when I was only 1 year old. Can you believe that? 1 year old. And from what I understand, and I've seen it only like once, not that many times, but I've seen it a fair amount. It's actually a pretty good musical. I'm not saying it's the best live-action adaptation of a cartoon character, but you got to remember back then there weren't many live-action adaptations of cartoon characters ever. And also, it was a joint production of Paramount and Disney. There's your answer to the musical, because Paramount at the time, you got to remember, in the late 70s up to the 80s, we're doing musicals like with Grease and Grease 2 and all that. In Disney, well, they kind of slowed down on the. We're known for movies having a musical genre, having songs in them. So, anyway, this movie, like I said, it's pretty good. It's going on 30 years since it's been released, and it's 113 minutes, so in other words, an hour and 53. It's rated PG, and like I said, this is probably one of the very first live-action adaptations of an animated character in quite a while. So instead of expecting maybe, you know, him fighting Bluto, which he does, it's basically like an origin story of how he came to a small town, met Olive Oyl. We see Olive's family. We find out that Olive originally was supposed to marry Bluto. We meet Sweet Pea, who I guess is abandoned by somebody. Popeye's dad is introduced in there as someone that knows where the treasure is. You have to watch it to find out what that is. Wimpy is in there. Overall, decent family flick. Probably not the best there is, but overall it's a decent family flick, decent family musical. Not the best. Not the best adaptation of an animated character, even one as respectable and loved as Popeye. But overall, pretty good. Not as good as it should be. If they were to remake it, it probably would be. But overall, it's a decent film, and if you want something that's going to relax you, maybe make you laugh a little bit, or introduce your kids to Popeye, this is the way to go. And if not, this is the way to go. But overall, decent film, not the best, but worth a watch. Popeye the movie.